Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining our first Sage Intacct release webinar. So today the webinar is going to be Sage Intacct 2025 Release 1. This release actually came out Friday the 7th. So we've kind of handpicked a few things that we thought were like really important, really cool, really awesome. Wanted to share it with everyone. So, for starters, I am Lisa Brewer. I am a senior Sage consultant here at Oasis Solutions. I've been with Oasis for 7 years, and I have been a Sage consultant for 13 years. So, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just hide my video and we're going to get started. So, first things first, we're going to just dig right into what our agenda for today is going to be. So, again, I just kind of handpicked from a very long list of enhancements of what I thought would be necessary to go over in this call today. So, first things first, how do I locate the release notes? Where can I go to find those? Second, AP automation with purchasing. So, some of you may already use AP automation. This is an enhancement to that using purchasing. AP bill approval by vendor. How do I turn that on? What happens when I turn that on? We're going to go over that. Nacha files for accounts payable ACH. We're also going to look at enhanced list views. We're going to talk about how to authenticate and validate your sender email domain. This is kind of an important one, as this one is something you need to do and has a deadline of May of 2025. Next, we will talk about preventing direct postings to journals. So we currently have a prevent postings to general ledger accounts. So Intact has taken that a step further with preventing those postings directly to a journal. And then we're also going to talk about supplies inventory. Um, as we get started, you're going to see a Q&A box. We are going to have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So any questions that you have, Miss Falana Callahan and Miss Garen Stout are going to be monitoring those questions, and we will get to those at the end of our webinar. So let's go ahead and dig into how do we locate those release notes. So directly in Sage Intacct, when you first log into Intacct, depending on how you've set up your preferences, if you're not already on your home screen, you'll go to your home screen and the very first thing you see is coming soon 2025 release 1. And then below that is a hyperlink to the read the release notes. So I'm going to be going back and forth between the slideshow here and directly into Intacct. So here, if we're in Intacct, if we hit our home screen, if we're not already there, here's where you'll see that information for how to get to your release notes. If we click on that hyperlink, here we're going to see all of this information. So we've got some different categories and subcategories under those. I will tell you, all of what I'm showing you today is going to be directly under the financial section. Feel free to just hop in here, take a look, and then there's also a video if you wanted to see that video. All right, so let's hop back into here. So next we're going to talk about AP automation with purchasing. So you can define how incoming purchase documents map to existing source transactions, and this is a one-time setup. So instead of converting your purchasing transactions directly to a vendor invoice, you can let Sage Intacct do that for you. So the steps identical to AP automation. So we use the email or we upload those through the automated processing, which you can see here in the diagram, either the email or the upload. Then the next step here is Intact then uses artificial intelligence to detect the vendor and match the vendor invoice to a purchasing transaction. Then Intact creates a draft invoice, the same as it does now for AP automation, um, but also attaches the source document as a PDF. Line items are then populated from that matched source transaction. So all of your line items from your purchase document will be seen within that draft vendor invoice. And then the next step is for you to review that vendor draft invoice, make any changes necessary. So what happens at that point is your corrections are then fed back into the AI engine, and it then updates the machine learning model to improve future matches for that particular vendor and GL accounts, and also rules out any duplicates. So that is AP automation with purchasing. So next in line is our vendor-based approval for bill routing. So what happens here is in your AP configuration, where we set up those vendor approvals, vendor invoice approvals, um, we can now add a vendor-based approval rule type to your bill approval policies. So you will have the option to assign the bill approval to approver to each vendor within the vendor record. Then when a bill is submitted, Intact will route the bill to the assigned approver's queue for review. So you can manually update, as you can see here in this bottom section. Once you've selected the vendor-based approval, you will then, on your advanced tab in your vendor record, you're going to see a bill approver drop down directly under your credit limit field. So again, you can manually select those bill approvers, or there is now an updated CSV import file that contains that new bill approver field. So bill approvers can be any unrestricted business or employee user with approved bills and list permissions. They can also be part of a user group, provided that they are unrestricted and have appropriate permissions. And only one user in that group is going to be required to approve the bill. So let's take a look at what that looks like in Intact. So within our accounts payable configuration in our bill approval settings, within manage, you're going to notice when you drop down your list, you've got the new vendor-based approval, which I've already selected in my row 2 here. So once we turn that on, within our vendor record on our additional information tab, we will then have the bill approver drop-down list where you can either manually make those selections, or again, we can download a CSV import that will contain that specific field. All right, so moving right along. So generate NACHA compliant payment files. So NACHA compliant file formats are used to improve the efficiency and the security of payment files that you upload to your bank. So you can now generate those NACHA compliant files in Sage Intacct using the feature Bank File Payment Menu. So in this release, Sage Intacct added 4 new NACHA compliant files. So there's a balanced with and without the end of file marker, and an unbalanced with and without the end of file marker. So there's a handful of setups that must take place. So we have to enable the use of bank files, subscribe to Sage Cloud Services, and then enable the bank files in Sage Cloud Service subscription. Then there's some back end work that you must do in your master records, such as your checking accounts, your vendor and or employee records. We would need to update those account details and make sure the end users have permissions. And at that point, you generate, upload, and then confirm those ACH payment files within that new bank file menu. Um, so just a handful of setups that has to happen there. As the rest of these, if any of these kind of like turn on a light bulb for you, at the end, we're going to give you some contact information of who to reach out um, to turn some of these options on for you. And then next, we're going to talk about enhanced list views. So this is something you've probably seen, but just wasn't 100% sure what it was and what it did. So within a lot of your list view options, so I'm in accounts receivable and I have selected customers. So in the right of my screen, there is an option to turn on enhanced list. So I'm just going to click that. So when I click that, I'm going to immediately see a new view. This is going to be somewhat the same as your regular list where you can create and manage those views. So you can publish it for others to see, can make it private to just you. Um, but a couple of things just right out of the gate, you can see these column headers. You're able to click on those and resort ascending, descending. In the columns, you're also going to be able to choose filter conditions. So maybe we only want to see customer IDs that starts with, ends with. So all of these filter options are going to be available in your column headers. Some of your column headers are going to have a column setting where you can sort ascending, descending. You can freeze your panes. You can do text wrapping. Um, Once you have created this view, you can edit it, save as and rename it, or you can delete it. So I've got a couple of filters on my specific view. So in the right-hand side of my screen, I'll notice filters is highlighted and I have a number 2. So if I click on that filter section there, I'm going to see what data I'm filtering. So for my view, I'm only looking at active customers and I'm only looking at customers that are not one-time use. From within this view, I can click the plus symbol and I can add more fields. And it does not have to be fields that are currently showing in your list view. And then you've got other statement examples for and or. Any changes you make, we'll click apply and your view will update. The next really cool thing here is under your configuration. We're under the all section now. If we go over to the selected, it's going to show us exactly which columns we currently have selected. If we want to reorganize those columns, we just simply drag and drop those where we want to see them. And then if we go back to the all, you'll notice a search. So within that search, I'm going to type phone. So I'm looking for a specific phone number. So then I could make my selections. But you can scroll through here and see the different data sets that's being used as well. And make any selections that you want to make and click apply. Any changes that you make, you must save those changes if you want that to be saved the next time you access your particular view. So another thing to look at within this view is we can toggle between list view and split view. So in the split view, we're going to see this record on the right-hand side of our screen in view mode. So if we wanted to scroll and choose a different customer, again, it's going to open in view mode, but we can still choose edit from the right-hand side of the screen to make any edits to this customer master record that we want to make. We can, again, we can toggle back and forth between those views, and we still have the option to choose other views from within the split view. And you still have your option when you're in your list view to export. So those options are still there. And then to turn off your enhanced list, you just click turn off enhanced list. Okay. And again, you're going to see this option to turn on enhanced list about anywhere that you have a list view, in most places that you have a list view. All right, let's hop back in. All right, so next, this is what we're talking about that kind of is one of the more important things here, because this is something that kind of has a deadline, and you're going to come away with a to-do out of this webinar, actually. So this is the authenticate and validate your custom domain. This needs to be done before May 2025. So starting in May of 2025, all customers who send emails using a custom domain, you must authenticate and validate that domain. So Intacct is doing this to fully use the enhanced email delivery service within Intacct. So this is important because it improves email deliverability. It helps reduce the chances of your messages being marked as spam and just completely not reaching your recipient. Um, from a security standpoint, it protects your domain from being used in phishing attacks or any other fraudulent activities, and ultimately aligns with best practices for email security and email compliance. So one thing I've added here is not only a screenshot of where we're going to go to perform and add our sender domain, um, but this is one that we really need to make sure that the person doing this is a business user with admin privileges, and the permission they're going to need is under company info, and they're going to need view and edit permissions to perform this task. So within our company configuration on the security tab, the email sender domain, that information is listed right here. So this is where we're going to go to perform those setups. And again, anything you've got questions on, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. And then we're also going to provide you with contact information of who to reach out to regarding any questions or concerns or how-tos regarding what you've seen today. All right, so we will continue to move along. So here we are going to talk about prevention of direct posting to specified journals. So direct entries to general ledger journals are one of the primary causes of discrepancies between your subledger and your general ledger. So this is a way that we can prevent these entries on a journal by journal basis. So this disallow direct posting checkbox has been added to the journal setup page. If you select this checkbox, users cannot create entries for this journal through the journal entries page. The only way that this is going to allow you to post is directly from the subledger. By checking this checkbox, this also helps prevention of creating these journal entries through an import or through API. So there's a screenshot there of what that looks like. So I'm also going to show you that within Intacct. So within Intacct, general ledger, and then under our setup menu, we're going to go into journals. And here you're going to see a list of all the journals that are set up within your instance. So if we wanted to disallow direct posting to the AP journal, we would do an edit and we would check this checkbox. So that is where that comes in to play. All right, and we're going to move back over. So next on our list is going to be supplies inventory. So supplies inventory, as you can see there, provides a quick, convenient, and efficient way for you to manage employee requests for items needed to run your business. So think of supplies, but not exact inventory items, things you're not going to physically really count. Um, so the process here is an employee will create a request when they need a supply, and then the supplies manager can use the supplies workbench to fulfill those requests. So I did place the workbench example there on the screen. So you can see a request date, a document number, which is going to be a transaction definition configuration that will have to happen. Um, the name, how many they requested, how many's available, the price, who requested it. So exactly what is supplies inventory? So many organizations stock supplies to ensure they're on hand as needed. So this just kind of makes it a little easier to ensure that both your um, that you've got adequate stock, that we can issue that stock easy, and that the supplies are being consumed and accounted for according to their intended purposes. So we are going to be able to create items that your business requires to operate. So supplies can include administrative items, for example, paper, pens, coffee. It can include furniture. Maybe that's shelving. Maybe it's ladders. Maybe it's a new desk. Um, and equipment. So if we think about equipment, that could be monitors. It could be keyboards. It could be certain cables. Um, so what happens here is some of you may or may not already have inventory in your system. You may not be subscribed to it. If you're not subscribed to it, we would have to subscribe to it, and then there's some more options there. If you're already subscribed to it, there's going to be an option in inventory to turn that on. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So what that's going to look like is under inventory and configuration, it's just going to be a checkbox to enable supplies inventory. So once we enable that, we also have to make sure that we are using advanced workflows, and we also have to remember that once we turn that on, there are some options that Intacct is going to configure automatically that we cannot change. So your maintain inventory valuation is going to be set to run nightly. We can't change that once we turn this on. Intacct is also not going to allow for negative inventory, not in inventory control, not in order entry, or in any of your warehouses, where that is somewhat an option now within inventory to allow things to go negative on a warehouse by warehouse basis. So what happens? I mentioned transaction definitions. We've got transaction definitions that get set up. We can, once you turn this on, you'll set up a inventory item or a stockable kit item. Those can be supply items. Once you have an existing inventory item set to supply, You can't change it to be inventory and vice versa. If one is inventory, you can't switch it to be supply. Supply items can be purchased, they can be transferred, built, or disassembled, but cannot be used in order entry. So we're gonna hop back over to our slideshow here, and we are gonna open the floor for questions. Any questions?
Hey Lisa, it looks like you have two questions. One is about the user group, and it says, we tried to use this morning on the vendor approval and could not get the user group to show up. Do you have to do anything special?
So there are probably a few things in addition. So we can definitely take a look at that. Um, I will have, so the next slide is actually showing that we're going to reach out to Miss Garen Stout. So if we'll get those questions over to Garen. And then also AP automation, do we need something special to get that option? So yes, if you do not have that already and you want it, that is something we'll need to talk to Garen about. And the AP automation is on a tiered plan. So some of the things we'll have to know is how many invoices do you think you're going to use in AP automation? I don't know that tiered number right off the top of my head. Garen, if you do, you can answer that. But the price varies on the amount of invoices you plan to load. Again, it's on a tiered plan. And then there's a price per invoice if you exceed that tier plan. So we'll make sure that Garen gets you that information, Jennifer. So I do have Garen's information up on the screen here. Any questions, concerns, comments? Anybody wants to dig in a little deeper to some things they saw today, reach out to Garen, and then Garen will notify me. We'll get some calls set up, and we'll make sure that that we touch base with everyone. So we'll leave this open for just a few more minutes. Again, thank you all for joining. I hope this was pertinent information. I think it's really good to understand when these releases come out. Obviously, they happen overnight, but you're always going to have that little pop-up message on your screen that tells you that it's happened. You can also drill into that little pop-up message, which will also take you to those release notes. But you can also get those release notes from your home screen within Intacct.
I think we can let everybody go with a few minutes early. And if you have any questions, you can always send those over to Garen and know that the recording will be sent out. And we hope you attend the next one, which will be on May the 14th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Have a great day.